Thanks for having me today. If you knew I was coming, you didn't. I'm here, so thanks for having me. My name's Jocelyn. I'm a kindergarten teacher at El Rodeo, which is a public school in Beverly Hills. I have been teaching kindergarten for 11 years now. I have my master's in teaching. I'm early childhood certified, and when I think about the thing that keeps me teaching, because we could all do a million other things, the reason I love teaching is because I love teaching the human component. Like everyone is going to learn how to read, write, add, and subtract. But my favorite thing, like my passion, is teaching kids how to be good humans, which I know that is a big piece of the curriculum here. And it's not as prevalent in as many schools as you think. And ultimately, that's really the biggest predictor of success is kids learning how to be good people and understanding how to navigate the world respectfully and how to communicate. And I'll get into all of those things in here, but that's really why I am a teacher. I wasn't always a teacher. I was doing a lot of different things in my 20s and trying to figure out what I wanted to do and landed on teaching. And a few years later, this is where I am, and I'm really happy to do that. So I first want to say thank you guys for just being open. And I know that you've been through a lot, whatever degrees that means to you. You guys have been through a lot. So I'm sure that getting ready for kindergarten is something you were already anxious about, and now you have other anxieties to think about too. So hopefully today you feel a little bit better that about what to expect and how to help prepare your kids. Does everybody have kids going into kindergarten? No? TK. Okay, but okay. TK, kindergarten. Okay. Well, it's relevant for TK too because the TK landscape is pretty new for a lot of schools. My district has had TK for a really, really, really long time. It's only in the last 3 years that we've made it like a robust program, the same way that we have for like third grade, fifth grade, and so forth. But I know that a lot of schools, because now TK is a mandatory offering at public schools, it's a little bit, it looks different depending on where you're looking. So hopefully today you learned some things about what to look for in your program. And if your program is not offering that, and that is the only option you have of where to send your child, you'll know how to supplement those things because not all TK programs, not all kinder programs are created equally. And listen, like your kids are going to be fine no matter what because you're here on a Thursday morning, like with your school trying to learn about how the school's going, what the future is. So by default, you guys are plugged in and good parents, and your kids are going to be fine no matter what. But hopefully some of the information that you learned today will help you feel a little bit more confident no matter where, what ends up happening. Like Alana was saying, there could be last minute changes a couple days before school. Your kid could start school and then something else opens up and then it changes. So it should feel like no matter where you go, you're armed with the information that you need to have to feel like your kid is going to be successful no matter what. So I think, this is a big keyboard. Okay, there we go. So I always like to start with this because I think that parents have an understanding of, well, my kid can read Cat in the Hat and my kid can write their name backwards and forwards, and my kid speaks 4 languages and they can write every single letter in the alphabet. And they think they're ready for kindergarten or TK. I'm going to use those interchangeably. They're ready for kindergarten, they're ready for TK. But it actually doesn't mean kindergarten readiness. I mean, that's great, like especially the kids that are just interested in that and you're not like forcing it on them in like a square peg round hole situation. If they're naturally interested in that, then that's great. But trying to shove all of these things in before TK kindergarten does not make them ready for TK or kindergarten. You might actually, depending on your kid, be working backwards with them. So I always like to start with that because I think that it's fun for us to say like, well, my kid, speaks 2 languages and my kid can write 600 words and can read Cat in the Hat all by themselves. But what's actually really impressive is when kids come in with these traits of self-regulation, cognitive development level, different cognitive development levels, communication, social skills, imaginative thinking, peer relationships, problem-solving skills, conflict management, and different components of executive functioning. Like when a kid comes in with those and like doesn't even know their name, we like celebrate. We're like, great, because these are the things that make the foundation for them learning all of those academic skills. This is what sets them up for success is a strong base of these characteristics. And I'll get into those a little bit more. But that's really what kindergarten readiness is. And I know that, Nicole and I talk about this all the time, that these are the things that are the most important. And when we are answering questions from parents, whether they're, family friends or our own niece and nephew, we are putting these things at the forefront of whatever program people are considering. It's like, this is what you want to make sure that your kid is hitting, as they're getting ready for TK or for kindergarten. So social emotional is huge. I know that you guys focus a lot on that. Again, I'm looking at Nicole a lot because we talk about this stuff. We nerd out over these things all the time. But social emotional is huge. Recognizing and naming their own emotions, being able to say why they feel sad and explaining it, identifying emotions in others, that's huge. Being able to read other people's emotional expressions and reactions is huge, because that is it's like a two-pronged skill, basically, is reading their reaction and then being able to react based on their reaction. It's kind of an advanced skill. Using simple strategies to manage emotions, like taking deep breaths when they're frustrated. We see a lot of those posters that people put up, like, when I feel X, like I can X. So those are huge. Asking for help, knowing how and when to ask for help and speaking up for themselves instead of just yelling. Teaching kids that, yeah, it's okay to be upset. Here are the options of how you can show that you're upset, right? Like, hitting and throwing is not an option, but, taking some deep breaths, walking away, taking a break, teaching them those things and making sure that those things are really cemented in them before they move on to TK or to kindergarten. Of course, we're working on these things in TK and kindergarten, right? Like, these are crucial things that we're going over on a daily basis with them, and part of our, integral to our programs. But you want to make sure that you're also supporting that, in case, again, you can't always control what's happening in the program unless you know very well which program your kid is going to, and you know that these things are already woven into the daily. You want to make sure that you are supplementing with these things, these components. This is a big one, integrity and responsibility. So integrity is actually a word that kids can learn. They can learn integrity, they can learn responsibility, and use those words. Kids as young as 4, because we have 3 TK classes on our campus, and these are things that we actually teach them to use, basics like following classroom rules, taking responsibility, understanding the importance of telling the truth, right? Like, that's a big one for this age, because kids are so afraid that they're going to get in trouble for something they did if they don't, if they lie about it, it's just easier. But really making them understand how important it is to tell the truth, treating belongings and materials with care, putting toys away after playing, and then returning borrowed items and respecting personal space. So these are things that, again, when you're looking at whatever program you're going to be going to next year, you want to make sure that these things are covered. And these are all things that you can ask of your program and say, hey, like, how do you guys address integrity? How do you teach responsibility? Do you have a program? Do you, is that part of the language that your teachers use? So these are the things that are the building blocks of success for academics, which I know a lot of parents wonder about. Yeah.
You should ask your teachers now how they're promoting these in the classrooms, just so you know, because sometimes, like, there's a lot of communications that go out from our teachers that I think we try to, like, educate and do a lot of professional development. But I think it's important to get, as parents, to get in the mindset of, like, kind of checking the schools, checking and making sure that the schools that you trust are actually continuing to do these things, which is why you're educating yourselves today to know what to look for. So I encourage you to, like, grill our teachers and ask them, like, I learned something today. Like, how are you guys integrating these kinds of things in the yellow room or whatever classroom kids?
And I'm going to send, Nicole has this that she can send out to you guys. So if you want to remember, like, oh, what do I ask again? But yeah, that's a really good point. And I when I do back to school night, for example, like, I have all of this stuff in my deck so that the second, third week of school, like, parents know that these are expectations of them to have of me to teach onto their kids. And that's a really good point, that you should be asking your teachers. You should be asking your programs, are you teaching these things, and how are you teaching them? And are all of your teachers trained in them, or is it just the ones that are interested in it? So that's a really good point. You definitely should be asking. And obviously communication skills, using words to express their needs and their wants, and also being able to read that from others, right? We talk a lot about body language in TK and kindergarten. And so that's a huge indicator of, a strong readiness for both TK and kindergarten, but just in life in general, right? engaging in simple back and forth conversations, understanding and following simple, one-step directions, using polite words, listening attentively to a story, and responding appropriately. So again, like very basic, but I would be remiss if I didn't include these things. And again, you can learn a lot too. Like, I don't know if you guys do observations. Do parents do like observations, like can watch their kids ever?
No, not.
I know some programs do that.
Not formally.
Because that's something that you can observe, like when your kid has a play date or if they have siblings, like just really watching out for that and making sure. The biggest thing to do is just to model it, which I'm sure you guys have all heard and are doing, but biggest thing is to model appropriate communication skills. Nicole and I are very big on that with our niece. Do they know about our niece? We don't have children of our own, so that's what we use for everything. Our nephew is going to be 4 and our niece is 2.5. So we like use them. Like, we've learned so much through them. Kudos to you guys as parents. That's amazing. We use them a lot, and it's fun to be able to like test some of these things on them and actually see them working in real life, because we don't have our own kids. And while we have kids that we work with in school, it's different when they're your own to be able to see them in a different environment. But modeling is the biggest thing for that. And then play skills. So play is huge. And I want to like talk about, and I have another slide on play. Basic things though, like taking turns, engaging in pretend play, group activities, resolving small conflicts is huge. Like, let's take turns with the blocks, showing interest in making friends and engaging in positive social interactions. Play is huge. A lot of TK programs will say, we're play-based. And it's like a really cool, fun term that a lot of schools will just slap on their website and on their brochures and on their programs and be like, we're a play-based. And it's become such a term, I feel like, that's thrown around, because they'll say like, well, we have bikes and we have a play kitchen and we have we have play stuff. But having the play stuff is very different from facilitating play and having what's called a play-based program, which is what you want. For TK, you absolutely want a play-based program. Most of them, again, will say that, yeah, we're a play-based program. But I'm going to show you some of the things that you want to look for when schools say, yeah, we're a play-based program. You want to know to look for specific things, and you want to be hearing certain things from your kid when they come home from school, and you'll know, okay, they're doing it right. They're facilitating it the right way. Because play-based is, everybody uses that now. Everyone says, yeah, we're play-based because we have a play kitchen, we have bikes, and they play.
Like every preschool saying they're Reggio.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you just want to know what to look for and what to ask about these programs, so that because everyone says they're play-based. It's just a term that's thrown around now. Did I skip? Oh, okay. I'm going to do independence first. Okay, this is huge. This is something that I spend a lot of time on at back to school night. Independence is the biggest gift that you could give to your child. Now, are they going to know how to tie their shoes at 4 years old? Like, probably not, and that's okay. We're not expecting them to, but what we want to do is foster this idea, cultivate this feeling for them that they can do things on their own, right? So following simple daily routines, like following a routine is considered independence, like being able to remember, like, oh, we wake up, we brush our teeth, we go downstairs, like that. Following routines, that's a component of independence. Attempting to dress themselves, which is always really fun to see what happens at school when I dress myself today. It's fun to see what they show up with wearing. But putting on their shoes, zipping and unzipping a jacket, zipping, unzipping backpacks, packing, unpacking backpacks, lunch boxes, even like snack things that you put if you're sending your kid with snacks, and foods. Like, practice that stuff with them at home. Obviously, don't do it for them. Like, practice alongside them. Be, as Nicole always says, like, be a sportscaster. Like, say, I see that you're pulling open the yogurt top, and oh, I see. So that's huge, because it gives them the confidence in school. It like lowers the effective filter on the stress of opening and closing a backpack, so that they can focus on like other things. Like, it sounds so silly, but watching kids struggle with like these very basic things that they could be practicing at home in like a fun, low effective filter environment where they're not stressed and they're not feeling like, I'm going to be the last one to recess if I don't get my backpack open. And then like now they have anxiety at 4 years old because of the backpack. So silly things like that, little things, silly things like that, practicing with them at home, cleaning up after themselves, making sure that they know to do that. Making simple choices, like helping them understand, okay, if I have 2 snack options, like how would I know what to pick? again, you're like teaching them to make these quick decisions on their own so that they have more energy to make decisions on like bigger things. Like if they have a conflict on the yard or a communication situation. And then trying new tasks before asking for help. So showing persistence and problem solving and trying different things to work through issues so that they're not stuck and they're not, I have this kid who started at the beginning of the school year just crying every time. He was 5 then, crying every time like it was snack time because he could not get his backpack open. And like it was the most, like he had legitimate anxiety about not being able to get his backpack open. And this poor kid was crying every single day. And we went over different ways. Of course, like I talked to the parents, hey, can you practice the backpack at home? And listen, some parents do it and some parents don't. And so, okay, we'll work through it at school and we'll go through it. It took him a lot longer to have no more tears and to be able to open the backpack by himself. But now, like, we make a big deal. Like, he's always the first one to open the backpack. And he like, he's like, he like shows me like it's a big deal. So, being able to do that stuff with them at home so that they have nothing to worry about when they get to school is like the nicest thing that you could do for your kid. And it also just clears their brain so that they can learn those academic subjects. Like a lot of parents are like, okay, but I really want them to read, write, add, and subtract. They will, but you have to make sure that all of this stuff is solid first. So play, just kind of going back to play. I guess I should have put that after the other one, but that's okay. Going back to play. So these are all, there's a ton of research. I'm not going to read to you all the research about it, but all of these actually resources are from kind of like the godparents of early childhood teaching. When I got my early childhood credential, these are some of the people that whose names you would see on every single page in every book behind every research-based program. And basically what they say is kids need to play. And all the things that kids learn when they're playing are the most valuable skills that they will have for the rest of their life. Like above reading, above writing, above adding and subtracting. Like these are the things that make kids successful adults. That's really successful, happy kids, and then successful adults, which is what we want. We want to create kids who are happy kids and then grow on to be successful, independent adults. But play is huge. So you want to ask when you're looking at your program, you want to ask your teachers, you want to ask your administrators, what does your play-based program look like? Like, what does it include? Like, what are some of the examples that play is used? How are they weaving academics into play? There's a lot of easy ways to do that. It's kind of like a trick that teachers do is weaving academics into play. But there's so many components of it that it's really the most important thing that you ask about, that you look for in whatever program your child is going into. And again, if it's not something like, let's say worst case scenario, the place that you're going, it's just, they say, yeah, we're play-based, but you start to look into it and you ask the right questions and you realize like, oh, this isn't that great. You can supplement that at home. You can fill in those gaps at home. So don't feel like, oh, great, like now I'm stuck at this place and they're not doing what I need them to do or what I've learned is really important. You can supplement that at home. That's why I feel like having these conversations and talking to your professionals at school is so important so that you learn like, how can I supplement if I feel like my program, and it's the only program that I can do right now because of my life situation, and that's that. It's important for you to know and be armed with the knowledge so that you can supplement and fill in those gaps if there are any.
Can you give an example? Like, what answer am I looking for?
So you would say like, I want to see how Nicole answers this. So if I was a parent and I was a brand new parent and I said, hey, because I know that this program has it. So Nicole, like, what does your play-based program look like? What's an example of a way that you incorporate play for your people?
Yeah, you would hope to hear that they are encouraging meaningful interactions between children and the materials and their environment. So are they reciprocating their peers? Are they playing cooperatively? Are they being included socially? And are they taking initiative to have social interactions and with each other, and also just how they're manipulating the materials around them and how they're interacting with the environment, which is essentially what I said. So all of that helps with a child's ability to kind of relate to the world around them. And why that's important, which I'm getting off subject, but forgive me, is because when you're in that kind of state, when that is where your foundation is, then you're ready to take on new information. You're not afraid to take on you're kind of primed to take on new information. So you're wanting to look for teachers in schools that are encouraging essentially these kinds of interactions with everything, making sure that they're positive. Positive meaning like not happy all the time, like negative, really what we consider to be like a negative interaction is actually productive, right? So what does productive play look like? It's like all of these kinds of things. Are they making choices? Are they taking risks? Are they being put in situations where they can fail and probably do fail? Are your teachers in kindergarten or preschool?
Yeah, TK, kindergarten, preschool.
All of this philosophy should travel through, as we're constantly saying, at least half of kindergarten should be the primary focus.
You want to hear that the teachers are facilitating play, that it's not just, okay, boys and girls, it's playtime, go play. Cool, they have a dollhouse, they have a this or whatever. Like, you want to hear the word facilitate. Like, you want to hear that the teachers are facilitating and setting up opportunities. It's not just, okay, free play, like go play, which is also important. That's another piece of any program that is necessary, is just free play where the adults stand back, unless somebody's about to get hurt, like we don't intervene. But there needs to be several opportunities throughout the day where teachers are setting up these situations, like for potential conflict or for, communication opportunities. Like, those should be strategically implemented every single day, especially for preschool and TK age. Kindergarten, it's a little bit less, but you want to make sure that at least in preschool and in TK, they're actually facilitating and setting up those opportunities for that.
Another thing that another way that we intentionally do that is like, if we know that the kids are very kind of hyper focused on cars right now, like not those cars. And we'll see how that goes. Or if the kids are focused on, I feel like right now all I hear about is Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
Paw Patrol and Spider-Man.
So when you take it away, what does that mean? That to enjoy
That is a byproduct, but I think more than that, it's providing an opportunity for kids to be put in situations where they might be disappointed.
Yes.
From a
Yes.
place of disappointment, how do we get out of this discomfort? What's gonna be the thing that pushes them out of this discomfort?
Yeah.
Hope that it's themselves.
But at home, you could have them play with the same.
Yeah. I mean, at home, we're at school, and hopefully, like, lots of, who you're talking to are schools who are, this is like their goal at home.
Yeah.
Life is very, very, very different. And sometimes you just need to sit them down with Paw Patrol because you need to, take your other kid to soccer practice or whatever. Like, that's home is very, very different than school. And what we can do at school is a lot different than what we can do at home, which is why you should be so particular about what's going on at school.
Yeah.
What I was going to say earlier too, when you brought up modeling certain things with siblings, like certain social situations with siblings is never going to be the same either as what they can learn at school.
Totally.
They just treat their siblings differently because it's familiar and comfortable, and they're willing to scream at that more than so.
Yeah. No, I meant like, just kind of trying to facilitate with one sibling so that the other sibling sees how you're communicating with one. And then, it's kind of like a win-win, and then the other one.
I think like certain things can be learned and established better in the school environment.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's secondary. Yeah. That's why you always hear, I always hear, oh, they're not like that at home. Or, oh my gosh, like my kid is like that at school. Like they're so crazy at home, because it is a very different environment. It's a different set of expectations. They're just two totally different bubbles. So I always tell parents, I'm like, it's a good thing. It means that they feel comfortable at school to just rein it in. And then at home, they just let it go. Just like we do. Like when we get home from a long day of whatever, we let it go. We're a little bit different than we are, in our day-to-day, whatever that looks like. So just making sure that again, like play is so big, especially for preschool and TK. That's the biggest thing. And again, it's a structured play. It's wanting to make sure that whatever their play program is, that there are opportunities where teachers are consistently setting up, these scenarios for kids to fail and get frustrated and experience all of the emotions in all different aspects, so that nothing is like a surprise and nothing stops them from learning those academics later on, a couple years later. I could have been saying, this is what Nicole and I were just saying, is why play should be your top priority. Kids, as Nicole said, children who are learning new concepts through play are less afraid to learn things. Kids who can express their feelings can advocate for their learning needs, so they know how to say, like, I don't understand this, or I need more practice with this, or this doesn't make sense to me, or things like that. This is a really, really big one. I feel like, primary grades like TK, kindergarten, first grade, even second grade is where kids will get labeled with behavior concerns because of a lack of body regulation, or they have excess energy or things like that. But if you're working on body control and body regulation as much as that child can do it, every kid is different. It's not to say that like everybody has to be like this and everyone's buttoned up, but there are ways, like I have kids that when they're doing their work, they're not sitting, they're standing up, they're jumping while they're writing. For me, I tell them, like, I don't really care how you do your work as long as it's not disrupting you and it's not disrupting other people around you. And that's something that they learn, hopefully, in a good program, in good preschool, strong preschools and strong TK programs, that they learn about how to control their body in a way that works for them in different scenarios. So it's not about being buttoned up and sitting still and be quiet and that. It's about like learning what works for your body in an environment where other people are also doing what works for their bodies, so that it doesn't interfere.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Like, you seem to be very, I like your approach, but other teachers might not have that approach. So like,
Yes.
say the kid gets comfortable with that in your class and then they go to first grade, then they just adjust, or like.
It's interesting. If kids learn how to regulate themselves, that is big for me. And I can think of like a first grade teacher who it's not as much for her. Like she's a little bit more old school. She's a little bit more like buttoned up, kids fit in a box, and like that's that. But for me, if I ensure that that kid is not disrupting themselves and is not disrupting other people, it shouldn't be an issue that they need to stand up while they're working when they go to that like kind of stricter, crotchety first grade teacher. And I know it's different.
More control.
And they learn more control. Like they learn like, oh, I can jump up and down while I'm writing as long as I'm not touching the people behind me. I'm not whistling while I'm doing it. I'm not kicking the person who's sitting behind me. Like they learn how to make their own box while still being able to do what they need to do.
But if the teacher isn't teaching that in kindergarten, then you just practice at home.
Yes, exactly.
And how about like, so Zoe, my toddler used to be really good at regulating her emotions. We would like count to 5 and take deep breaths, and she was amazing at it. And then this year she doesn't, it's harder for her to do that at home.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to encourage that behavior, because before she would do it with me all the time.
You want to just keep doing it
Just
at home.
keep doing it?
You want to keep doing it at home and make it part of your day while you're making breakfast, while you're driving in the car, you're sitting at a stoplight. You're like, oh man, I'm so frustrated right now. This red light is taking so long to turn. We are running late.
And then I'll do it. Okay.
Can you help me count down, Zoe? Like we need to do I need to do some, can you help me? Because I think that you can help me. And just finding ways to weave it into your everyday, because you're not going to be able to count on schools to do all of these things. And you're right. You're going to have one teacher one year who gets it. You're going to have another teacher the next year who doesn't get your kid at all and who you butt heads with. And that is how it's going to be. That is no matter what school you end up at. That is how it is in every school, in every situation.
So what can you give a recommendation, like a message you can send your child to school? Because obviously they're going to encounter people in the world that don't get them. So it is a good lesson to be able to be yourself while still like, I guess, operating in someone else's parameters.
Yeah.
So what message can your kid carry into school with them to know that they can be who they are and they don't have to change who they are. They just have to be able to, I guess, control it a little bit in different situations.
Yeah, I think the best thing is because most of your kids now, I mean, I don't know how old all of your kids are, but like you're here, so they're at an age where they can understand that there are other people when they are in school. There are other kids around them when they're in school. and they're learning things about personal space, not touching other people's bodies. Like they're learning the basics about how to act in an environment when there's other people to consider that they've never had to consider before. Some of them, it's their first time in school. So it won't be a brand new concept for them to understand, like, hey, okay, Nicole. Hey, Nicole, like, I know that you really love to wiggle when you're coloring. Like, I know that wiggling is your favorite thing to do when you're coloring. You have to remember that when we're wiggling, our wiggle only has to stay around our body, and our wiggle can't touch other people's bodies. I think that you wiggle when you color is the coolest thing ever. Don't you love wiggling? Like building them up to say, like, this is so cool and special about you, and you don't have to stop that, but you do need to be aware that there might be other people around you, and you don't want to touch them with your wiggling, because that's for touching other people's bodies, right? And we don't touch other people's bodies without asking. And it's like just building up their confidence to know that, like, yeah, you should wiggle while you color because you love it. Why not? And also communicating that to the teacher at the beginning of the school year. But again, not every teacher is going to be like, cool. I have so many teachers at my school that I'm like, you need to leave. You need to go find another job. You need to go find something else. So you don't like kids. And like, Nicole should be able to wiggle.
They've had like 10 years.
Yeah, there's a million different reasons, but yes, and you're not always going to have teachers who are open and flexible about the way that your kid needs to learn. You won't. And that's why you want to make sure that at home you're building that up with them, and you're also have those conversations with the teacher. You never know, but have the conversations right up front. Be like, hey, I know it's the beginning of the year, and I know you're going to learn about my kid, Nicole. She's so cool. She's got a lot of energy. When she colors, she's got to wiggle. Like that's her thing. And we've been working with her on not wiggling around other people so that she doesn't accidentally touch someone else's body when she's wiggling. But if you could, is that okay? Like, how does that sound for you? Or does that, would she need to go wiggle? Like, does she need a desk, like somewhere, away from other kids? Just being able to kind of explain to this teacher who your kid is and what their needs are to be successful, what you've learned about what they need to be successful, and seeing how flexible they are to build that in. But I find it hard to believe that any teacher, even the ones that I'm thinking of that I really can't stand that are at my own school, I find it hard to believe that even they would shut down something that isn't taking them away from their learning or taking others around them away from their learning. Like even those teachers that, and I'm not going to name names, I will not, but even those teachers that are really like square, rules, like, okay, like it's day one, page one, open up your books, everybody, day one, page one. Like there are those teachers, right? But even those teachers would not be averse to a kid who is able to control themselves in their own way, even though it's not just sitting like this and being in the typical like control pose.
And also just to piggyback, also kind of to go back to how like arm your child with this, like to give them a little bit of independence, is you can encourage them to advocate for themselves, which starts with all this like early foundational learning of like interacting with others and having conflict and stuff that we're really strongly instilling here. You can tell your kid like, even older, like even to like the first, second, third grades, you can go in there and be like, if your teacher doesn't know why you need to wiggle.
Yeah.
Because like, can you imagine being a child going up to your teacher, advocating for yourself, saying, listen, I got this. I need you to know that I wiggle. And I'll ask you when I need to wiggle. But can you let me wiggle when I need to wiggle? And I can promise you a teacher's not going to be like, no.
Yeah.
Like if there's a teacher in
That's the cutest thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So they will work with, because I remember as a kid, like sometimes I would advocate for myself, but then they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then it was like very defeating as a child. You're like,
A lot of the times if a teacher hears that though, like if a
Yeah.
kid came up to me and it's not something that I had already kind of figured out on my own, I'd be like, hey, Nicole's mom, I noticed, Nicole said the coolest thing to me today. Like Nicole came up to me and said, I need to wiggle. Like, can you give me more information about that? Because that's so interesting that she knows that about herself.
Yeah.
Again, not every teacher is going to be like that. That's why, it depends on your kid.
Yeah.
You either have to speak up for them in the beginning based on who your kid is, but also work on teaching your kid to speak up for themselves and advocate for their needs, obviously in a respectful way. That was a perfect way to do that. But I find it hard to believe that even
I think when I think about it, I think it was more like camp counselors, and I'd go to like the Jewish camps that had like a lot of like, they were almost like schools, so it felt like teachers.
Yeah.
I think it was direct teachers.
Yes.
I'm thinking back about it.
How wonderful of an opportunity. Let's say that this hypothetical child, Nicole, goes up to the teacher and says, I really need to wiggle, like advocate if the parent really supported this child is really aware of their identity and their needs and knows how to advocate for themselves, and the teacher is still like, no, it's too disruptive, you can't wiggle. How wonderful for this child to now be recognized, like, this teacher's not hearing me.
Yeah.
Like, I said all the things I have to say. She's not ready or willing to learn, because if this Nicole is truly feeling this way, knows it's true for her, advocating for herself and then being rejected, maybe it's not her fault. Maybe the other person's in the wrong.
Yeah.
And how cool to not be this like child of, obedience and be able to like think and question differently.
And if that happens, good for you. They come home and you guys talk about it, and you know better, and you can have that exact conversation with them and say, wow, that's really amazing that you were able to speak up for yourself. How did that feel? You having that conversation and say, well, sometimes you're going to have people, you're going to have teachers, depending on the age group, you're going to have teachers who don't always listen to you, and they're not always going to understand your brain the way your teacher last year did. She really understood your brain. This year, it's a little bit different. It's a really good thing for you to learn, because not everybody's always going to understand your brain, even when you can explain your brain. Not everybody's going to understand it. Like, to me, and to what Nicole's saying, like, it's a win-win, because your kid gets to advocate for what they need, whether they get it or not is a bonus. Like, if they get it, it's a bonus. If not, it's a bonus, because you get to have that conversation with them, and that's something that they'll carry with them forever. Like, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Yeah, I know, all of us. Like, imagine all of the therapy all of us like would have avoided if we had all these things when we were kids. That's what I always say to our parents at school. I'm like, if we had all of these things and we knew this, like, as kids, I wonder what kind of adults we might be. I mean, I don't know.
I've had these conversations with my father. And
What?
He's like, yeah, I wish I had these resources. He's like, he'll watch me handle situations. Like, how do you even know how to do that? I'm like, well, we have different resources than you did. And he's like, I wish I had this.
Yeah, it's very different. There's just a lot more that's available now, and the thinking has changed. Like, the expectations have changed, as they should. Like, things need to change. Things can't stay the same all the time. So these are some of the things that when you're, looking at your child and thinking about the following year, whether it's another year preschool, it's TK, it's kindergarten, these are the things that you really want to think about and reflect on. Their social skills, communication skills, problem-solving skills, their emotional maturity, their self-regulation skills. So these are just kind of the things that I had just talked about, just synthesized into, one or two words. And you want to be really reflective, and hopefully you have a good relationship with your child's school, where they are now, and their teachers, and you can say, hey, like, I really want to understand my kid's level in each of these things, or not level. I really want to get a better picture. I want to get a complete picture so that I know how to help them going into whatever their next year of school is. So these are things you want to ask your teachers about. And I don't know, do you guys do parent conferences? Yeah. So, I mean, a parent conference, and I always say, like, at least for me, like, you don't have to wait for a parent conference to ask about these things. Like, if you're wondering, and I think that the teachers here are really open. If you say, hey, I really want to understand, like, I just learned all this stuff today that I wasn't thinking about, and now I kind of want to get a temperature check. Can you set aside some time with me? And I really want to see where my kid is with all of these things. And you should be doing that periodically throughout the school year to make sure that, one, your kid's making progress, and to also make sure that, they're seeing what you're seeing and vice versa. That everybody's on the same page. And then when you're looking at your next program, these are some things that you also want to keep in mind and you want to ask about. So whether it's public school, private school, preschool, TK, kindergarten, these are the things that you want to kind of look for. You want to look for on the school's website. A lot of schools offer tours. So you can go in and you can kind of see what the classrooms look like. So you want to look at the classroom layout. You want to see that there's play equipment, what kind of play equipment, where is it stationed? Is it in the closet somewhere? And then they only take it out once a day. You want to see, if you can go, I mean, I think a lot of places, I don't think places don't do tours. I think everybody does tours, right?
They do tours, but it's always like volunteers that help you.
Oh.
It's not always you don't really get to directly talk to the teachers, at least from my experience.
Yeah, the teachers are not always I know we have tours twice a week, and they always come when I'm in the middle of teaching. If I can stop and go over and say hello, I can. But
So they don't always have all the questions. And then they let you talk to the principal after who answer all the questions, but she also has like a billion questions coming at her.
the best thing to do is to make an appointment with them if there isn't an ideal time. Like sometimes parents, I'll get prospective parents coming to like my back to school night, my open house, and they'll do that. So that's an opportunity to meet them. A lot of the times
not
they're
in the
really
school,
busy.
they'll come to open house.
Yep.
And then there's time to actually talk to you.
They just come in and they say, hi, I'm new. I want to ask you questions. I'm like, great.
Oh.
Because for me, it's like if I can answer your questions, you're anxious, you're worried, you want clarity, all these things. If I can give you that now, that makes my job easier in August when you start, if you start where I work. But in general, like that helps because you're going in armed with information that you don't have to ask about, worry about, wonder about in August when your kid's starting school. And you're free to like just operate on, oh my gosh, it's August, we're starting a new year, whatever it is. But if you can't do those things, you can always email the school, like email the principal, email the administrators and just say, hey, listen, I'm like one of those moms. I know a lot of things about early childhood. I've learned a lot from my preschool. Is there a time for me to come in? And I just want to ask some questions about, your TK program, your preschool program. And I find it hard, like, to believe that anyone would say no, because they want you there, whether it's public school or private, like they want you there. So, yeah.
And then another question is, so for like us, we prefer public school for elementary, and for us, it's more about the community. So some of the stuff from what I've seen from the two schools we've toured, we see all this and we're happy with what they have. But like, if I find out there's something they don't have, is it hard to bring those programs in or push for that?
It depends on the school.
Okay.
It really does. I mean, I'm very lucky. Like I work in Beverly Hills and a lot of our programs are subsidized by our community, and
The same with the two schools.
we get whatever we want. Like we say, we really want this, or hey, I really wanted this program. It's this much money. Do you think we can figure it out? Oh yeah, no problem.
The teachers.
Yeah, the teachers will say, we really want this program. And then we say, principal, we really want this program. And then they'll say, parents, this is a really cool program that the teachers researched, and here's all the information about it. Like, what do you think? And we usually, that's our school. It's very, I'm at El Rodeo.
Oh, you are? Oh my God, that campus is beautiful.
It's really pretty. You did? You're Jenna's sister-in-law. Not Jenna. I get them confused because I know Jenna
Did
too.
you like it better than what?
It's like
I know.
Did you come into my room?
but you were in the
That's how, yeah. I was like, I just saw you.
It's not like that's like so close to where I am right now.
Yeah.
And our district is Warner.
Warner's a great school.
I know. I was very impressed by it.
It's a really good school.
But I love every day I drive by at your campus, like, oh my God, it looks like heaven.
You should tour out because we were.
But then you don't know till the day of, right?
Well, you can if that's your home school, then it's an automatic.
It's not my homeschool though.
Yeah, but normally, is Horace Mann your homeschool?
Warner is.
Warner is. Well, we could talk after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to ask you questions after
Yeah,
about like,
that's
because I don't
amazing.
know, like, if we're going to go, we want to do like Warner 1 year and then Marquez. I have questions about that.
Well, we can talk after.
Okay.
Yeah. But these are things that, again, like you could ask your principal about, ask your administrator, wherever you're going, you can ask them. These are all fair game things to ask.
Can I just, we focus really fast on the part where it says how and when academics are introduced.
Yes.
Because the way I think it's really important, one, because I think a lot of the stuff feels like overwhelming for us, it's second nature, because we're like in early education, we know, we've done the research, we've done the schooling, it comes for us. A lot of parents that I've been interacting with, and I think like it's completely normal if all of you are having these feelings as well, is like we grew up in our generation, we grew up with success being measured with academics. How much can your child read? Can your child count? Can they do some ABCs? Can they do this? And how cool, my kid is so smart because they're able to do that. What your child is showing you when they're reading before they're supposed to, when they're doing math before they're supposed to, when they're doing all these things before they're supposed to, 99% of the time is that they have rote learning skills.
Yes.
They have memorization skills, which is appropriate at this age to have those kind of repetitive thinking skills, which is great to support that. But when you think like, okay, yeah, my child is counting and can spell their first and their last name, what they're actually telling you is that they have repetition and memorization skills.
Yes.
And not they're not really conceptualizing those
Yes.
concepts. They're not really understanding them as a concept.
They're not able to apply they're not able to apply. So like I have one kid this year who started reading, like he came into kindergarten reading at like a second grade level, right? We were all like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. He's reading at second grade level. Like, oh my gosh, okay. But his comprehension, like his reading comprehension was like not there at all. Meaning it was like just at the beginning of kindergarten, which is where he started, in the beginning of kindergarten. And the same thing, I have a kid who, you know, he knows like all of his multiples of 8, but he doesn't know how to add and subtract numbers within 10. So yeah, so that's what I meant like in the beginning when I was saying, you know, it's not so impressive that like they're reading right away. It's like, okay, but are they reading and comprehending? You know, they can count to 1,000, but like, do they understand the basic concepts of addition and subtraction? And so, like Nicole was saying, like rote memorization at this age makes total sense, but this is really scary for me as a kindergarten teacher because I feel like I have to then like work backwards. Like for this one kid who again was reading at a second grade level in August, like he was frustrated that he would have to sit and learn about like phonics, that like letters make sounds so that he could decode because he can just read words. He's hyperlexic, like he can just read words, but he can't decode a word. So he knows that cat is cat because his brain has memorized it. But if you asked him to segment cat into 3 sounds, which is a kindergarten skill, like he can't do that. So he kind of had to work backwards, right? So making sure that when you are asking about your program, you say like, how and when are academics introduced? Like when are they introduced? Like my principal, for example, she tells us explicitly in TK and kindergarten, she's like, you guys are not starting academics until like October. And we're like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. Just focus on going to school and teaching all of those, making sure that kids have a solid foundation of all those other things that I went over. Like that's what the first 2-3 months of school are for. Yeah.
But like, so the thing I'm seeing is like what Nicole said, like so many parents keep pushing that.
Yes.
And like, I've done like heavy research and I saw the play base was so much beneficial. And like, also after I did that research, I realized like a lot of the kids that were very academically strong as children are very socially not connected as adults. I didn't put the 2 and 2 till I did the research. But like I still feel like that's a fight. Like with these programs, they'll be play-based, they'll be great. And then every parent around me is like, why is there not more academics? So like I always feel like even when we do the TK next year, the kindergarten, there still could be a push to get the play-based out.
There could be.
So if that happens, then you just encourage more play-based on your own at home.
Yep. Because if that's
so don't
the
be
school,
like fearful of it. Just like bring it on.
Don't be fearful of it. Listen, like this is life, and you pick a school because you pick a school. There's a million reasons. You're like, this is where we're ending up, and that's it. It's rigid. Like this is where we can go, right? Like I would like to go live in Hawaii and live on a farm, but I can't do that. Like I have to do what I'm doing right now. If that's what you're doing right now, the only thing you can do is supplement it at home in real life. You know,
and they'll
at home.
be fine. It'll balance out.
and it'll balance out. This is like the ideal. This is like if you have your pick of the litter, you can go wherever you want. You know, you have the luxury of being able to shop around and like
if you
see.
Go everywhere, it might not be near your community or your friends, so it's like
depends
what you
but
want.
whatever's missing, whether it's here, like you can supplement it at home. That's why you're here. Is you're like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm getting all the things. Do it, you know, how you want to do it. But I learned some stuff about colors, and I'm like, I know like putting classrooms together is so much work. Like I'll do it for you. No teacher's going to turn down like a parent who wants to help them do things in their room because it's a lot of work to put a classroom together. So if you're coming at it from a place of I want to help you, I learned this cool stuff. Would you be open to it?
Does that calm down after like first grade? Those rooms with color.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends on the teacher. Yeah. It can be a lot. It depends. It's very heavily dependent on the teacher. Well, like I'm thinking about like the 5th grade classrooms, like Lindsay's classroom. Lindsay's like, we always call her like the Pinterest teacher because her rooms are always like, she's 5th grade. She's 4th grade, 5th grade. She's taught a lot of things, but her room, like she uses color, but she's very strategic about how she uses it. It's like colors that complement each other. So while they're not necessarily muted, they're colors that complement each other. Like she put thought behind it. There's colors that complement each other And if there are a lot of words and resources on the walls, again, it's like very intentional versus like, I feel like what we grew up with, which is where they just like put whatever poster they could find from Lakeshore, like on every, like no, like, you know, space is spared, like everything is covered and everything. But you will find teachers that are very like thoughtful, very strategic about what goes where. Like my room I don't have any student work on the walls. Everything on the walls is a resource, is like something that they can access. So when they're working independently, like they're not coming up to me like, how do I make an L? Like they don't even ask. It's like, oh yeah, I know there's a wall that like has all the letters on it, and I just go up there and I can figure it out from there. So it's very teacher dependent, but if you ever felt like, okay, my kid got the rainbow explosion room, you could easily say to the teacher, you know, hey, I learned so much. I'm a
I
stylist.
feel
Or
like
I
shallow,
learned.
but that was like the one thing I hated about the tour.
No, it's
it
not.
made me feel so overstimulated.
It's
I
not
was
shallow.
Like, is this a weird? Like I just thought it was like a taste. I didn't know.
It's
it was
not
like
shallow,
an actual thing.
and it is totally sensible for us to wonder about it these days because there is a lot more research about colors and lighting and space. So it is a big thing. It's something I'm very big on.
Jocelyn used to work with a teacher whose theme was flamingos, polka dots, and
Oh,
palm
she's still
trees.
there.
Like everywhere.
You probably saw that room.
What?
She saw that room, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Does
But
she
it
wear
was
clothes
like
that too.
it's like flamingos and polka dots and everything is flamingo. It's a flamingo rug and a inflatable flamingo, and then there's polka dots and pineapples and this and
But
that.
she's got one theme going, so I would actually take that.
She
over,
has
like,
one
the rainbow
theme,
explosion.
but it's like if you are a kid, like you always want to think about when you're designing your room, like you always want to think about, or designing a lesson, like you want to think about your most extreme kid. Like you want to think about the kid that has the biggest wiggles, the shortest attention span. Like that's who you're designing for, that's who you're planning for, and that's who you're supposed to think about when you're designing your space, designing a lesson, an activity, a game, a movement, whatever it is, because that's, you know, quote unquote, like most jack in the box, out of the box scenario. And then anything below that, like you can just enhance for that kid that, you know, needs it. But it's a lot. So that's something, it's just something to keep. I didn't mean to like monopolize on that whole thing, but I have a lot of feelings about it. And I do think that it makes a difference in kids' abilities to learn and pay attention and focus. So that's big. That's just something to look at.
Personal feelings. I think you've done the research, and I think that you have the practice, and you can
Yeah.
see success.
I think it's, when I say personal, I just like, I'm really like fiercely, I have
Yeah.
big feelings about it.
But
is what it is.
are they getting the same training as you? Like, why is one teacher doing that and doesn't know that that's
It's a mix. It's a mix. Because when I said like teacher training, it's a mix. There are some schools who have a default set of expectations about, for example, classroom layout, about SEL programs, like social emotional learning programs. Like there are schools and programs who do have those things defaulted and they're just built in. That's why you want to ask about them. You want to say like, do you have an SEL program? Like, do your SEL, social emotional learning.
Okay.
Do you have, you know, a classroom layout expectation from your teachers? Like these are things that you can ask, and it's totally okay to ask. You know, is there a class size cap? You know, are your teachers in TK, are they all play-based? Like how much training do they get on play-based? Are they all early childhood certified? I mean, in TK, they all have to be. In kindergarten, you don't have to be, but if you wanted to be, you could. So these are things just to ask, and some schools do have them as a basal expectation. Some schools do. But yes, you're also going to get teachers who are just interested in it, and they do it because they want to do it. Like at my school, classroom layout, like that's not a thing. Like our principal's like, you do you, like do what works for you. I'm like, well, what works for me should work for everybody is how I feel, but that's okay. I'll just speak to myself.
Or you send your kids to a private preschool like KI or Bashir, whose administration sets expectations
Right.
for all teachers to make sure that
Right.
it's absolutely 100% streamlined across classrooms.
Yeah.
Not every public school can
Right.
do
do
that.
that.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
And it goes back to you guys being informed, involved, and like armed with like,
Well, it's knowing, because like I thought it was overstimulating, but I didn't know it actually overstimulates kids too. So it's interesting to learn that.
Yeah.
and the more you guys bring up as parents, like the more change can be implemented, because we have these teachers who, I learned about this in my master's program, that it's a huge roadblock to propelling SEL learning in early childhood, and that includes like through first grade, is teachers who have tenure and have been around for a very long time and have taught for 30 to 40 years the same thing every single year. But so much has changed, and those teachers, I can promise you, are not willing to learn. We had an entire class about it in my master's program. How do we handle those?
We have, yeah. And just so you know, though, that's
It's hard.
That's at every school. That is at public school. That is at private school. That's at preschools.
Yeah.
That's at every single school, unless you go to like Finland, where everything is very different and it's a totally different school system. Everybody's happy all the time. They have different expectations. Like that's just how it's going to be. And again, that's why you go in knowing that you might get a teacher that's like that. Great. Now you know how to supplement and fill in the holes for your kid, so that they're not just with that crotchety old teacher for 180 days in the, rainbow explosion room and not being able to wiggle. So SEL sports, so SEL, social emotional learning, this kind of blew up after COVID, because after COVID, it kind of was revealed that like, wow, like kids really do need social emotional learning support. We didn't know that it was that important. And we're like, how did you not know that? But that's fine. We'll start it now, I guess. So most schools these days, post-COVID especially, will have some sort of program that they use to help facilitate social emotional learning in their classes. Some schools use specific programs. Like there's one program called Step Up that a lot of schools use. There's another one that has, I forget the name of them, but like there are these stuffed animals that they have for like different feelings. There's a million different programs. Some schools have a school counselor that go in and will teach these lessons in the form of a book. They'll like, pick a book, and then like we use the book, especially in the younger grades, as the basis of like, this is how we teach feelings. This is how we teach what to do when we're angry or whatever it is. But you can go online and you can Google and you can see there's so many things out there that different schools use. I personally don't think that there's one or two or three that are like, these are the only ones that work. I think as long as there's something that they're doing. So when you're looking at your schools, you want to say like, what types of resources are you using to facilitate social emotional learning? And if they say things like, well, during play-based, we talk a lot about emotions, blah, 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 like, yeah, that's cool. But what are some other things that you're instilling in them? Like, give me specifics. Like, what are some things that you are on the daily, like discussing with your kid, with your, having your teachers discuss with their kids about social emotional learning? One of them is being able to identify emotions, right? We use something called a mood meter to do that. There's a really great program called the Ruler Approach. I think it came out of Yale, which is amazing. Our school has something called a solution wheel, so that like on the playgrounds, they have all these options to choose from. Like these lessons are taught in the classroom, so that when kids go out onto the playground or when we have free choice time, we have these posters in our classroom. These are all the options that they can use when they come to like a conflict or disagreement. Like count to 10, use an iMessage. I feel like you are leaving me out when you don't play with me, and it makes me feel really sad. Use a compromise tool like rock, paper, scissors. You can walk away. You can choose to ignore what's going on. Be like, this is not worth my time. I'm ignoring this and I'm finding something else to do. Take a breath. So just, again, like teaching strategies. So you want to know that your school is facilitating these types of things in some way. There isn't one program that works. We use a myriad of things. But you just want to make sure that that is something that's woven into like every day, all day. And I think that was my last slide. Okay, so these are people that I love on. If you are like an Instagram person and you learn so much and you love those little quick like quotes and tidbits, I know you guys love Dr. Siggy. Like she's my God. Busy Toddler has really cool ideas for things at home, like play-based learning things at home. And then Dr. Becky, I also love. The only thing I don't agree with about Dr. Becky, and this is just my own thing, is I don't like to use the word good. Like I don't say like you're a good kid or you're doing good. Like I like to be specific. So I don't like to say like that was a good decision or that was a good choice or that was a good way to play. It's not really my thing, but she gives a lot of really good advice and she comes up with great scenarios, and she has a lot of the times like real parents that she interviews that come to her with common things that like most parents think or wonder about or have encountered, and she gives really good advice. So those are.
And she does that on her Instagram?
She does that on her Instagram.
But you hear her all around, because sometimes, like, I haven't called any to it, but I hear like sometimes people don't like Dr. Beck because they feel like she's so big now. She just
She still gives really good
It's still
advice.
good?
For me, I'm
Okay.
like, she gives great advice. Oh,
Okay.
sorry. And responsive counselor, I'm obsessed with just as a teacher. And this is, I wasn't sure if I was going to include her on there, but she gives really good ideas for like in classroom, how to like handle things in the classroom with kids. And like, why wouldn't you be able to use them at home? Like, same thing. So I love the responsive counselor. She has really good resources. Like a lot of my classroom posters that I have are from her because they're very like basic, calm, and she's really big about, you know, just representing a lot of things that we talked about in here. So these are my favorite people. I love
really
them.
like big